Well, prominent lawmakers have come to an agreement on the latest version of the NDAA, or the National Defense Authorization Bill. With the clock ticking down until the House adjourns for the holidays this Friday, leaders of the Senate and House Armed Services Committees worked out a deal to move forward with a bill that will fund the U.S. military next year. The 2014 bill will authorize $552 billion in national defense spending and nearly $81 billion for overseas contingency operations. Yesterday, I attended a press conference in which the leaders of those committees expressed confidence that the bill would be passed in due time. However, if it's not passed, there are a number of extensions that are set to expire. Now, those include combat pay, hardship duty pay, special pay for nuclear qualified service members, enlistment bonuses, incentive pay, retention bonuses, and more, according to Senator Carl Levine. But beyond funding the military, passing this bill would have huge implications for Gitmo detainees and for soldiers who are victims of sexual assault. To discuss these developments a little bit more, I'm joined by former congressional attorney Mark Levine. Mark, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So like I mentioned, I was at this press conference where they announced the agreement. They talked a lot about how they have to push this bill through. The time is running out. Can you talk a little bit about what they're doing now versus how this process is really supposed to play out?
Well, first of all, this is one of the few absolute must-pass bills in Washington. This is actually the least productive Congress in American history. No Congress has passed fewer bills than they did in 2013. But the reason it's a must-pass bill is because the Constitution provides that there's no standing army in the United States. That may surprise people given the military that exists today. But the founders require appropriations bills to be passed every 2 years or the army ceased to exist. That means they're going to pass this bill one way or another.
Right. But why is it that, so lawmakers are saying that this is going to, a lot of things are going to expire if this is not taken care of before the holidays.
And it will be.
Is that really the case? Or is this something that they could possibly take up in January when they come back?
They will pass this bill. There's no doubt in my mind they will pass this bill. They will not allow people to lose combat pay. There are many, many things that don't work in Congress. This is one of those things they absolutely will work out some agreement to do so.
Sure. Well, okay, let's talk about some of the big provisions of this bill. First of all, Gitmo, there is an update with that. Let's take a listen first to what Senator Carl Levine had to say.
The bill basically takes half of what we did in the Senate and passes it, and that is to give flexibility to the president to transfer detainees from Guantanamo to third countries. It maintains the prohibition on transferring detainees here for trial and detention.
Right. So like he said, half of them are going to be transferred out. They can go back to third-party countries. Many people are saying that this could be the beginning of the end for Gitmo. Is that all that was really standing in the way of President Obama, closing this down? Or does he have a green light now?
Well, first of all, half have already been cleared for transfer to other countries, and they haven't been transferred. President Obama is obviously very nervous that he's going to transfer someone back, and they're going to be engaged in terrorist activities. That happened for some of them that were released under George W. Bush. But more than half are already cleared. Another 35 or so are cleared for trial. And then the real trouble is about 48 who have been deemed neither able to be transferred nor able to be tried. They're in this indefinite detention situation, which I would argue is completely not in the Constitution of the United States. But this was set up under George W. Bush. It was inherited by President Obama. And Congress has prevented him from dealing with it in the way that I and many Americans would like to see him deal with it. Put them on trial.
Because they're not allowing, the one thing that they're sticking with is not allowing these people to come to the United States.
That's right.
To be imprisoned here or to be, to stand for trial here. So how can he really, policy-wise, even get around that obstacle? How would he be able to close Gitmo otherwise?
I don't think he can. The Congress has prevented him. President Obama came in his very first year, said he's going to close Guantanamo Bay within a year, and then Congress passed this legislation basically prohibiting him from doing so. So for all the criticism of President Obama for not shutting it down, it really is Congress that's preventing him from doing that.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a huge sticking point. Well, let's talk about sexual assault in the military, because this was undoubtedly one of the most controversial issues to come up this year. There was a proposed amendment by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and then also one by Senator Claire McCaskill. Those amendments were not implemented, as far as I understand, but there were some other measures. Can you talk about them?
That's correct. Well, Kirsten Gillibrand's bill would basically take the prosecution of sexual assault away from military commanders. So normally sexual assault is prosecuted in the courts, as it should be with a civilian jury. But in the military, there's special laws that allowed the commander to weigh in, and a lot of victims of sexual abuse said, hey, it's not fair. The commander may be friends with the perpetrator, and a lot of sexual assaults weren't punished. So they didn't get that bill through, though Senator Gillibrand will propose it next year. They did, however, achieve significant half measures. For example, if a jury convicts someone of sexual assault, it can't be overruled by the military commander. That person must go, the perpetrator must be dishonorably discharged, and the victim can get independent counsel. And cases that are not brought are reviewed by a civilian review board to make sure that there should be brought. Other things, you can't retaliate against a victim, you can't harm them in the military, and there's no statute of limitations. That may be even the most important. You can basically accuse people of crimes that occurred 5, 10, 20 years ago.
Right, some significant changes indeed, and we'll have to see if it is taken up next year. And last thing, I want to talk to you about something interesting. I asked a question at the very end of the press conference about Section 1021, which is the indefinite detention clause of the NDAA. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Basically, it allows for the government to indefinitely detain anyone, including American citizens, who are associated, even in the least, with terrorism. I pointed the question to all of them, but Buck McKeon is the one who responded, and this is what he had to say to me.
Let me go back over and tell you that what we have in the bill will be an improvement over what we've already passed in the House and in the Senate committee. And it was an overwhelming vote. So I think we'll be okay. I think we've addressed people's concern. Thank you very much. We need to go get the bill passed. Thank you.
Now, he wrapped it up really quickly after that, completely dodged my question.
Look, it is an overwhelming vote. He's right about that. It has support from Democrats and Republicans. I would argue, though, it doesn't have support in the Constitution of the United States, which I'm always carrying around with me, because the Constitution says the writ of habeas corpus, the right to challenge your imprisonment, shall not be suspended except in cases of rebellion or invasion. This isn't rebellion, this is an invasion. George W. Bush argued, I think wrongly, that because Guantanamo Bay is not the United States of America, even though it's on a long-term indefinite lease, which is why I think it's basically a loophole, that therefore he didn't have to follow the Constitution with Guantanamo Bay. I've never agreed with that. I think clearly Guantanamo Bay is under our control, and I don't think we can hold people indefinitely there, but obviously Congress at least disagrees with me. Maybe the courts will.
Well, unfortunately, it seems like it's going to be a mainstay of this NDAA bill going forward.
I'm afraid so.
But unfortunately, we've run out of time. Mark Levine, former congressional attorney, thank you.
Thank you, Ameera.